Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome back to the Severn Way, part 21 today. We're back here in Gloucester, the city of Gloucester, in Gloucester Docks in fact. And we've got quite a walk today. We've got some 15.5 miles down to Upper Framilode, and then I'm going to make my way on to Whitminster because that's where I left my car, which means that we'll be walking along a section of the old part of the Stroudwater Canal. That's the section that goes between Sewell Junction and the River Severn. It's not going to be restored, but it's got some interesting canal side cottages along that, and it's worth having a look at. So that'll make an appearance right at the end of today's video here on Severn Way 21 down to Upper Framilode. So I hope you can join me again here on West Country Wanderings. Now you may notice in the centre of the dock here, which is the main dock, it's the first one that was built here at Gloucester Docks, and it was built before the canal, the Gloucester Sharpness Canal, was opened. They are starting to dredge. Now a couple of weeks ago there was a protest here at Gloucester Docks by all the boat users, the narrow boats that use this fantastic inland port facility, and they're protesting the fact the government's cut the money to the Canals and Rivers Trust. Yes, which means a lot of work like this and maintenance on the canal network, like the locks and the sluices and the towpaths, isn't going to be done. I think it's some £300 million reduction in the Canals and Rivers Trust budget. I think that's perhaps over 5 years. I'll research that and put it in the usual way bottom when I do the edit here on the Severn Way. But yeah, so it's good to see that some dredging at least is taking place. Perhaps that protest has kind of get some action into place. I just hope so. Now this is a view you don't normally get here at Gloucester Docks because the gates are open. This is the dry dock which I showed at the end of the Gloucester video, but the gates there, which you normally walk across, are currently open, so it's not a dry dock at the moment. Obviously they're expecting for something to come into the dock awaiting repair here at T. Nielsen and Company. Not sure if it's that craft there called Shellfen. From this angle we've got a final view of Gloucester Cathedral, which of course we saw in Severn Way 20A as we leave Gloucester, make our way heading south to the city of Bristol, but not all in one lump today. So this here is Lantony Lift Bridge, important bridge, this part of Gloucester. Gloucester Quays, which all of its shops are just over there. Many retail outlets there. At this point here we're going to say goodbye to the canal. It's Gloucester Sharpness Canal, which we will see at the end of today's video. We're going to turn right, head across to the east channel, River Severn. So now we're back at Lantony Secunda Priory. We're going to be joining up with the main road, cross over it and head down to the east channel. Just a note here, if you're doing the Severn Way, you need to cross this busy road here, which leads to Castlemeads bypass, and the roads out towards up to Herefordshire, Worcestershire, Shropshire and the Forest of Dean and down to South Wales. That's why it's so busy. But we now go down this road here, which is called Sud Meadow Road. And next to this electricity transformer and the litter and dog waste bin, turn right down by the side of this house. It is actually marked though public footpath, but it is easy to miss. And there's our first tentative glimpse of the River Severn. That is the east channel, and shortly as we follow the Severn Way along here we'll be meeting up with the west channel at Lower Parting. So we're still in Gloucester, so I don't have my telephoto lens on the camera. We've got some movement up ahead, which I do believe are deer. We're actually close to the Gloucester's dump tip and recycling centre now, just here at Sud Meadow. And the Severn is just on the right, but although it's hard to spot here because of the trees. It's wonderful to see that though, deer inside a city. Yes, they've heard me now, I think. They're quite a way away, but you can see them jumping around. They haven't quite decided what to do. It just shows you how quiet the Severn Way as a footpath is. It looks like there's a couple of ducks there as well on the footpath. That's wonderful. And that's the first clear view we've got of the river so far. And on the other side of the river, that's back onto Epney Island. Remember I said it was the biggest inland island in England, possibly United Kingdom, and nobody seems to be entirely sure, but it is quite a size. And we walked along that, or for much of it, as we were entering the city of Gloucester, back on Severn Way 20. So the Severn Way continues through this kissing gate here. It's on an embankment, which is a good thing because we're also on the River Severn's floodplain here, and the river's level often comes much higher than you saw it just then. Now we've left all the buildings behind, similar to what we've seen in places like Worcester and Tewkesbury and Upton-on-Severn. There's no building out this part of the city simply because it's right on the river's floodplain. The weather today, well, it started off a little bit chilly. I had my jumper on to start with that you saw on the first piece of camera there. I'm taking it off now. It's already going to get up to probably 22, 23 degrees. It's probably already about 20. It's already feeling quite warm. I'm filming this just the end of the first week just going into the second week, should I say, of October 2023. We've had a very warm, unseasonably warm few days in this part of October. So that's looking to the Sud Meadow, sometimes known as the Hempstead refuse tip over there. You can see those little things. I'm not sure what they're called, technical term. They're like little chimneys that take the gases out where the products are breaking down, and it's already been covered over. And that part of it again, but it's still very much an active refuse site here in Gloucester. Now we're looking in the direction towards over that part of Gloucester. If you know, that's where the A40 is, a very busy road. It splits down to the A48 and up across the 417, the Leominster Road. I was the other day, as you know, doing one of my looking for a lost canal videos. You can just see the River Severn there. It's already gone past the lower parting where the East Channel and West Channel met up, but because of the tree growth there, you can't really see much of it from this part. Seems to be a curious object there in the field. I'm not sure what that is. Looks like an old sluice mechanism there for controlling water in and out of the river, or drainage in this part of the field. I have to say, I'm getting very wet doing this section of the walk because the grass has got sodden with dew because it was so warm overnight. Very heavy dew on the grass. It's a very, very wet section of the walk. So that's where we've come through past Sud Meadow and that bit smelly refuse tip for the good folk of Gloucester there. And we're heading down this way. The actual path is just on a higher ridge. You're probably making out some water, low-lying water in the field there. Of course, that is why this is the Severn Plain here. Now, since I turned off past that house you saw where it's finger-posted Severn Way, I haven't seen another soul, and I think the reason for that is this footpath. It takes us down to Upper Framilode, which, as I say, is a good 14 miles, and once you're on it, you have to do all of it. There is no turn back points, there's no other places with bus stops or places where you can get anything to eat. So if you are doing this, please make sure you bring plenty of food and water with you, because there's literally nothing on the route until we get to, well, Saw Junction, which is off the Severn Way, but that's where I'll need to head to get back to my car. And in case you're wondering where our river has got to, it's just the other side of those trees nearest the camera and between the ones further away from the camera, but hopefully we'll get a shot of the river again soon. Now I've just come off the footpath. I just wanted to show you the river here because this is probably the widest we've seen the river so far on our journey on the Severn Way, and it's doubled its width here because, of course, where we saw it at the start of the video, just the glimpses of it through the trees there, it hadn't joined up with the West Channel. Well, now of course it has, and so it's doubled in its width. At this point here, the river's in quite a bit of a curve. If you actually drive to Framilode from Gloucester, it's about 9 miles, but the way I'm walking today, say it's about best past 14 plus another mile back to my car at Whitminster, where there's the bus service. And that there is looking across towards the village of Hempstead, now almost like a suburb of Gloucester, but it is an individual place in its own right with a church, although I can't see it from this angle. It may be hidden by the clump of trees on the left of the screen there, where you can see that whitish coloured house. Morning! To the right of Hempstead, across the floodplain there, we're on an embankment at the moment, that's the outline of Robinswood Hill, which forms a very useful and quite large country park on the edge of Gloucester near the suburb of Tuffley. Just looking back across the river again, at this point you can see an enormous branch of a tree, or even maybe a whole tree, which is currently rooted right into the river's bed, wedged in there. Gives you a sense of the enormous force of this mighty river, Sabrina. So at this point here we have to make a little diversion. That's the embankment we've been following. I've had to turn off and follow that little truck across the field there and come through this kissing gate, where we're going to join up with rear REA. Come across that recently, didn't we, on the Gloucester Canal lane, which heads into the village of Hempstead, well, back into Hempstead, but we're going to take it down just for a short way when we'll rejoin the river again. I'll be able to make out somebody just hang gliding there on the opposite side of the River Severn, out towards, well, the Forest of Dean direction. There's our river again. We're now kind of parallel to places like Quedgeley, which is a large town now. It used to be a village, then became a suburb, and is now a separate town, but still within the confines of Gloucester City. That's behind me, although you can't see Quedgeley at all because it's the other side of that wood. The other thing to point out here, you can see how tidal the river is. Haven't seen much evidence of that previously on the Severn Way, but you can see at the moment it's quite a low tide, with the bank on the opposite side of the river exposed here. Now, for the first time on this section of the Severn Way, looks like we're entering a bit of a wood. It's a bit of a change for the walking conditions. It breaks up the embankment which we've been following so long since we left Gloucester Docks. Now, because of the Gloucester Sharpness Canal, which runs parallel to the river, from much of the way all the way down to Sharpness Docks, which we'll see later on in the series here, it's most unusual nowadays, or indeed since the canal was opened in the I can't remember the exact date, actually. I think it was 1820 something, wasn't it? I put the date in below. The Gloucester Sharpness Canal opened, to see any craft going up and down the river here, because it's such a tidal and full of mud banks and whirlpools that it makes it a very dangerous place for boats and navigation. Well, I'm currently at Stone Bench House, which is through those gates there. It's well CCTV'd and everything and all of that. And I actually walked past it, carried on the road, thinking there's going to be a turn off in a minute. But I easily missed it because it's here. Yes, it's over that stile and there's no finger post saying it's the Severn Way, but it is, because I've just checked my map. It does look a little bit overgrown, but here goes. Now, thankfully the section isn't very long, but it is very, very brambly. You just have to kind of breathe in and hope for the best. Make sure you've got no shorts on, that's for sure. So here we are at Stone Bench, and I'm going to set my tripod up in a minute once I'm off this bit of land that crosses Stone Bench House to tell you all about something very famous that happens here with the tides and the moon. I think you can guess what that probably is. And so I'm currently at Stone Bench here. I think SARA, that Severn Area Rescue Association, they cover the river from Bewdley, where we were a little while ago now in Worcestershire, right down to Avonmouth, and they've got a base at Sharpness Docks. I think they're doing a training session. I've also just seen the fire brigade leave this property here, but I think it's all to do with training, and they have to do so much training with their inland craft up and down the river, and I think they're loading it. But this is the famous Stone Bench. According to my guidebook, there is actually supposed to be a stone bench Yes, where the name comes from, but I can't find it. I've not been able to find it. If I can find a photograph of it on the internet, I'll put that in around now. But it does, the footpath, the Severn Way, comes around this private property here, which is heavily gated and CCTV, but as I say, the voices you can hear are the voices of Sarah doing some training there to do some sterling work. I did a video a little while ago now. They had an open day down at Gloucester Docks. I'll put a link into that one, into this video here. But this here is famous for the Severn Bore. And it's one, I think, of only 4 bores on rivers in the United Kingdom. I can't remember which other river has it or which other rivers have it. So I'll put those scrolling across the screen at the bottom now if I can find that information. And the reason it takes place is to do with narrowing of channels. Now down at Avonmouth and Portishead, where I was with Louise from South West Sundays about a week or 2 ago now, the channel there, the Bristol Channel, is very, very wide. That's where you can see South Wales and the 2 Severn bridges. It's getting on for 5 miles at that point. When it gets to just above Bristol, where the bridges cross, it's around about 1 mile wide. And when it gets to Sharpness and Lydney, it's about half a mile wide. But as it increasingly gets up to the port of Gloucester, it's narrowing and narrowing, narrowing all the time. And also the channel, the base, is doing that. So it's got less and less water space, or space should I say, for the water to come upstream from the tide. Of course, the water is flowing downstream, but because it's the tide that's changing. Remember, this is now a tidal river since we left the city of Gloucester. And because of the action of the tide flowing up, it has less and less space to go into. So what happens is the water goes over the top of the water that's coming down the river from Mount Plymouth, where we started this series last year. So that's how the phenomenon happens, why the phenomenon happens. And Stonebench is one of the locations where people come to surf on the river at the tide. When you actually get the tides, they do publish them. When there was supposed to have been one, a really good one, about a week or so ago. And if you have ever seen the Severn Bore, I have on a school trip many moons ago, but I didn't take any photographs of it. If you have got any photographs of the Severn Bore, you're welcome to share them onto my Facebook group. If you're not a member of that, then hop along to Facebook, type in West Country Wanderings, and then you're welcome to join the group. Just request to join the group, and then you can put on your own photographs and video clips of places around the wider West Country, the region that I cover here on YouTube. Anyway, we're going to continue our journey down to Upper Framilode. Hello again. Yes, sorry, that noise is is it called a rib that they use for Sarah? I'm not sure if it was Sarah, whether it was the Gloucestershire Fire and Rescue Services, one of the two anyway. Both of them still do a brilliant job, and obviously every so often they do need to do training out here on Sabrina, of course, because you never know when it's going to be needed. Starting to really warm up today now. We're now about just after 11 o'clock. I was a little disappointed not to see Stonebench there, but the guy made a big thing of it, but Lass doesn't seem to be see her there at all. But if you are coming on there, Severn Way, out of Gloucester to Framilode, the direction I'm doing, excuse me, that's the water bottle. It's been rubbed up against my tripod case there, so sorry about the noise there with that. And yeah, it's really hidden, that footpath, no finger posts. So watch out for that if you're doing this section from Gloucester to Framilode. But I'm really enjoying the journey today. As I say, it's quite a long one. Very fortunate in this part of the year, second week in October, to still have beautiful weather. Now the property that you can see over there is Elmore Court. If you drive around the lanes around Elmore, you'll see its magnificent gates. I think it's now used as a wedding venue, also a business, a conference centre. And they have other assorted businesses like solicitor offices, that sort of thing. Now, like other sections we've seen here on the Severn Way, this footpath here is hugging the river very closely. So we're in a wood and it's just there. In fact, after I left Stonebench, it went over Dinmore Creek. So that there's a gap in the field and you have to follow that to get out, and then you come across a very tight and difficult stile. No Kissing Gate there. And again, it's all unmarked. There is no markings for the Severn Way along this section. I've just only seen those 2 finger posts, and that's been it. So relying on an OS map or another map of your choice is absolutely essential on this section here, because it's not always as obvious as you'd think it would be. So here we have got a sign, yes, just there. It's saying Severn Way, so that's the third one. Here's the third one. Interesting now, there's another finger post pointing to Elmore End, and it's pointing directly into the River Severn. You certainly don't want to follow that one. Now, I think that this section of the Severn Way is actually going through the Elmore Court estate. I've got lots of apple trees behind me. That's usually an indication that there is some estates going on around here, and it is quite a large estate. I seem to remember in the 1970s and early 80s, before I moved down to Cornwall, that Elmore Court house was open to the public. It was like a summer Sunday sort of thing, and you could go around it. I seem to remember a few things about it, particularly a large balustrade on the staircase, very grand. Also a large window going through the Great Hall, magnificent building, but alas, it is no longer open to the public. I don't know if they ever do it on special events or anything like that. If you live around this part of Gloucestershire and know any more about Elmore Court, love to hear from you. Please drop a comment in the usual way below. Yeah, wonderful open landscape here. Sorry I couldn't be in vlogging mode earlier on in the video, because I set off with my one camera, which has got my kind of multi-purpose lens on, with my attached microphone, which is there, and this one's got the shotgun on it, but it's got a wider angle lens which is more suitable for vlogging, and I couldn't swap them over until I got to Stonebench, simply because the route to Stonebench was very, very wet. There was nowhere for me to stop and put my rucksack and tripod down to do a piece to camera and swap the cameras over, so that was the first chance I had that. Sun's really coming through the mist now. Wonderful landscape on that side. The next thing we'll be looking out for is Minsterworth, which is where also you can see the Severn Bore when it's high. Should be a good shot across towards the church of Minsterworth and the Forest of Dean, and that's at a place called Elmore Back, which is about a mile from here, so I'll see you when I get there. Now I'm hoping to take my lunch when I get to Elmore Back itself. We're nearly there now. Views have opened up, magnificent views across the river, across into the Forest of Dean as well, which is a lovely part of Gloucestershire, and it's terrific here. It's you can't hear any cars, the occasional plane going overhead, but certainly no cars. We're a long way from roads, that's for sure. A long way from people indeed. I haven't seen anyone since I left Gloucester. No one at all, apart from the people on doing SAR or fire rescue, whoever they were, in the river. Apart from that, nothing. There is a light plane going overhead, and that's about it. And the reason this section of the Severn Way, like a lot of the Severn Way, is that it's very difficult to access it via car if you just want to do a short section. Once you leave Gloucester, you can't get off it till we get to Upper Framilode in terms of road access, because there's nowhere. We have come across a couple of lanes,
but those lanes don't have any parking facilities whatsoever, and so there's nowhere you can get anything to eat or drink. People seem to like that sort of thing these days, but you've got to bring it with you. But the reward for that difficulty with the walk, we're now, as I say, about 6 miles out of Gloucester city centre, is that it's surrounded with this beautiful scenery all around us, just absolutely magnificent, and no cars can be heard, and you just have the entire place to yourself on a beautiful October day. So you still can see here that the River Severn is currently at low tide. That is just outside the village of Minsterworth there. Beautiful apple orchards there. And this is just a stunning stretch of the river, enhanced by the blue sky of today, reflecting in the river's surface. So that there is Minsterworth Church behind me on the other side of the River Severn. It's actually just off the road that heads down towards Chepstow and Newport. Beautiful church, wonderful River Severn side setting here. There is another church actually behind it called a place called Churcham, which is near Hineham Woods, which is RSPB. I digress. Can't actually see it from this direction, but Churcham Church is most unusual. But yeah, Minsterworth Church is lovely. Particularly noteworthy is the Lich Gate, which you can see from this side. Normally expected to see it on the village side, but it isn't. So we're here at Elmore Court. There's an orchard behind me here. Just show you that before we continue our journey. So this is the apple trees behind me. What I particularly like that view is you have the curve of the river looking back the way we've come up from the looking up that way towards the city of Gloucester, where we've come from on the Severn Way today. We're now going to be heading on to Longney and then on to Epney before our final destination of Upper Framilode. Now you may be able to hear some traffic now. It's not actually near me. Oh, got some tree leaves there banging into me there. It's not actually near me, it's actually on the other side of the River Severn. And as I said, that's the A48, which heads down to Chepstow in Wales. Actually gave me a bit of grief, that road. Not long ago I did a video called Sunset Over the River Severn, one in my short bite series. And when I was filming that, there was a lot of motorbikes going up and down that particular evening. I happened to be filming the sunset, so it was a bit tricky. Although I used all the audio from the location, I actually had to wait for the motorbikes to go away and start recording and then stop when they were coming back again. There seemed to be loads and loads of them, but I haven't got that today. There is a little bit of traffic noise, but we'll be away from that road again shortly. You can't even see it here, but you can hear it a little bit. But this side of the River Severn, though, no roads here. There's a very narrow minor lane which feeds into the farm at Elmore Court, but that's all. We're now curving away from the A48. Fortunately, I've got a couple of tractors that are cutting this top embankment that I'm walking on. You can see there the ridge that I've been following as we're leaving from Elmore back, making our way round to the village of Longney. It's at this point here, I'll insert a map now so you can see what I mean, that the river kind of curves around, so it goes heading more a little bit to the east, a bit further away from the Forest of Dean in that direction there, so there'll be less noise from the A48 road as we head along to Longney. Since we left Elmore back, you can see that the river has widened here considerably, going on a bend there, and you can see a large sandbank, and there's another large sandbank as we head down to the village of Longney. Now you always have to treat Sabrina with a great deal of respect. Although that looks like an inviting beach on the river, I would strongly persuade anyone not to go on it because, unlike a beach on the sea, this one is likely to be full of quicksand and sinking mud. I have to say, this is turning into one of the finest sections of the Severn Way so far for me. We've had some brilliant sections on the Severn Way, haven't we, here on West Country Wanderings, on the journey from Mount Plimlimmon. But there's a variety, and you haven't got things like we've seen with the Upton-on-Severn to Tewkesbury section with all those churches. But it's more made up for variety of landscape and what actually the footpath goes through. And here I'm going through beautiful orchards. It's like I'm going through somebody's large private garden, but no, this is still the Severn Way. Though it's not marked as such, there's no markers. Like I said, Gloucestershire County Council a little bit behind the curve behind Worcestershire County Council, really not promoting it. It looks like in some cases the Severn Way signs have been removed, but it is still clearly marked as a public footpath. And yes, this is just terrific here to be walking through this orchard in almost mid-October on a very, very warm day by the river. The river is just literally the other side of the trees here. You can't quite see it at the moment, but as I say, we have had some spectacular views of the river so far, but a couple more to come before we finish our journey today. So we're now looking at the village of Epney, well, hamlet of Epney. I believe there's a pub there. But yeah, it's just amazing to see the change and the character of the river since we left Gloucester a few hours ago. Incredible.
So there is a pub here, it's called the Anchor here at Epney, but I don't have much time, so unfortunately I don't have time to stop for a drink. So now I'm walking along a road for a little bit. I don't enjoy walking along roads. The brick wall to the right is obviously a sea wall, well, river wall, to protect the water, the tidal river of Severn coming up and over the road, and also the pub that you just saw behind me at Epney. Now the River Severn suddenly hasn't got smaller. This is the River Froome, which runs parallel to the Stroudwater Canal, which we'll see more of shortly. So we're going to turn off the road that we joined at Epney here, and you can see public footpath Severn Way down a minor road taking us into Upper Framilode. And yes, I know what you're thinking, is there a lower? Yes, well it's not called as such, it's just called Framilode, which we'll come across in part 22. So that's the end of the walk today here on Severn Way 21 to the little hamlet of Upper Framilode, right on the banks of the River Severn by its wonderful Victorian church. Not quite the end of the video though, because I'm going to walk along the old section. You're thinking, why is it the old section? Well, basically, the Stroudwater was built first before the end of the 18th century. I'm putting the exact date below because I can't remember. I've just done a long walk and my brain's gone dead. So it's not a Canal Series one today, but that was built first. And then of course they came along under the section from a separate canal from Sharpness to Gloucester Docks, big inland port. That would open around about 1820 something or other. And when the connection was made to the Stroudwater at Sawell Junction, slicing through aforementioned Stroudwater Canal, it meant that the boats no longer needed to go through into the River Severn to get to Gloucester, but they could go at a brand new, sparkly, clean, large ship canal to avoid all those mud and sandbanks that we saw today on our journey into the city of Gloucester. So that's why that section was no longer used. It fell out of favour, and then it gradually became completely abandoned. In fact, there are no plans by the Cotswold Canals Trust to restore that section. Anyway, we'll continue on our journey. We'll restart it here next time on the Severn Way 22, as I said, but little journey excursion now to follow a canal. So that cottage there is Lock House. It was the lock keeper's cottage for the lock that entered the River Severn during the Stroudwater. And there is Wharf House itself, which sits right on the wharf, but there's no access through there across the fence to see it, where it joins, unfortunately. And that there is looking down on our disused section of the Stroudwater Canal. As I say, there's no plans to actually restore this by the Cotswold Canals Trust, but it's still a beautiful and interesting section in its own right. Got the original wharf stones here just before the bridge and before it entered the River Severn. It's good to see that in pretty good order, and the grass has been cut as well. Sadly, the bridge itself has original bridge, I say, which would have been a humpbacked variety bridge carrying the little lane down to Upper Framilode Church. That has sadly long gone. And these here are the canal side properties as well, which would have been built for the canal workmen to maintain the canal, also assist the haulage of goods up and down it. It's a wonderful haven for nature though. And there's a delightful pub here by this, or rather inn should I say, by the side of the old section of the Stroudwater Canal called the Ship Inn, traditional canal side inn. So that's it for today here on West Country Wanderings, the end of Severn Way 21. We will return again, of course. If this is the first one you've seen in my Severn Way series, there's 20 videos that precede this one, and they're on my Severn Way playlist going back to last year when I started looking for the source on Mount Plimlimmon, and then they continue in a chronological order to where we are today at Sawell Junction. We'll be continuing next time from Upper Framilode, making our way to Frampton-on-Severn, which is only 1 mile that way. You're probably thinking, only 1 mile, but actually the walk will be 15 miles because we need to complete the Arlingham Loop. The temptation is just to walk across towards, well, it'd be a very short episode if I did that. So we're not going to do that because there is some fantastic scenery on the way of Arlingham. Also, some fossils to show. It's incredible. They'll all come in part 22 of the Severn Way. Until then, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you on the channel again very, very soon. All the best for now. Cheers. Bye bye.